Hi everyone, I'm Chris Andino. I'm the political counselor here in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Being asked about what skills I possess as a Latino member of the Foreign Service that apply to my job. And I think part of it is just the identity of belonging to multiple cultures, which is a skill that is really, really important in the Foreign Service, and understanding not just kind of the code switching, but the different ways in which we interpret the world. My father is an immigrant from Honduras, and my mother is a native Iowan. And growing up, I certainly identified more as an Iowan. And in the Foreign Service, I've been able to aprovechar the ability to live in Colombia, in Panama, in Argentina, and to work on Mexico. And you find that in all of these different countries, the culture is so different. And that's true between Latino communities, whether they're in Florida or Arizona, or California, New York, Chicago, and certainly from Iowa. And so that's been a skill that I've been able to carry with me as I've gone along in my career, and just it gives you that little bit of understanding about the cultures that we're trying to influence and understand. So I started in the department in 2005, January 2005, but I actually applied in 2003 while I was still in college. And I think I joined for the same reason that a lot of people did back then, which is that September 11th was an active memory for me, and that really changed the way that I approached the world. I saw that I'd been given a lot of opportunities growing up in Iowa, great education, good access to friends, and a network there that is really a blessing. And wanted to serve a country that had given me so much, especially in the face of a brand new danger that was being presented to us. So signed up. It was a long process. I'm glad that I did it. What I tell people though is that if you're interested in doing it, make sure this is what you want to do. Because for me, and I think for a lot of the reasons that I just laid out, a lot of people look at this as a job, and I don't see it like that. It's really much more of a vocation. It's the Foreign Service. We receive a commission, and we are serving a mission to protect, serve, defend, and advance the interests of our fellow countrymen and women, regardless of their background. And that's been, for me, a real honor to do, but that's really what compelled me to join. Okay, so as my role as the political counselor, it's funny because when I explain it to people who know nothing about the Foreign Service, the thing that I will say is think of the stereotypical diplomatic job, and that's what I do. A lot of my colleagues around the embassy have functions that are either functions that we have in a normal office and workplace. So I'm recording this in our public affairs section. And public affairs is just what it sounds like. It's public diplomacy. It's PR, it's press, it's cultural exchanges, and that's a really obvious thing to be able to tell somebody. When you work in the economic section, well, what do you think you cover? You cover the economy of the country that you're covering. You cover trade issues. If you're consular, well, consular is a function that's really specific to us, but it's visas, it's passports, it's helping Americans in need overseas. And then management is exactly what it sounds like. They manage the logistics platform, the human resources platform that enables us to do our diplomacy. So political is kind of other duties as assigned, the utility infielder. What we do on a day-to-day basis is we engage with political and social leaders across the spectrum. So one day you might be talking to the foreign minister, the next you might be talking to a Catholic priest who's working in a slum area of town, trying to understand what are the parameters under which this government is operating? What are the pressures from them, from their own population? What are the things that they're looking for in their relationship with the United States? And what are the opportunities that exist for us to build that relationship, to get greater advantages for our own taxpayers, our own companies, or even tourists that are traveling here, to make sure that their stay is safer and more secure? So what we're doing on a daily basis is talking to people, making sure that we understand them and that they understand us. We then report that information back to Washington so that policymakers in Washington can have the best information, often information that you're not going to get in a newspaper, things that are told to us in confidence, or things that are specific to an objective that the United States is trying to achieve. For me, it's the most fun job you could possibly have, and I get to talk to people all day, every day, that are from all kinds of different backgrounds, have all kinds of different perspectives of the United States. And often they're surprised to talk to someone like me, whether that's because of my heritage or my hair or my beard. They're saying, "You're the U.S. diplomat." And I think it's really exciting to be a member of a service that reflects who we are as a country and can show that value to the countries in which we're working. Okay, so as a member of the Department of State, you're going to have great stories. A lot of those best stories are from the visa line and consular, and I won't bore you with all of those, although in consular I did get to meet Carlos Vives and Juanes, which was pretty cool. Every post, you meet 1,000 new people, and you're going to have 1,000 new stories. Some of the best friends I've ever had are contacts and friends that you meet at these foreign postings. But I think the most fulfilling part is when you understand that what you're doing is tied into a larger national objective. So I'll actually give an example from work in this very room. When the coronavirus hit, we kind of took over this room as a task force to ensure that Americans that were going to get stranded here in the country could get out. And right where I'm sitting in this chair, one of my colleagues was communicating with cruise ships to get over 1,000 people who were stranded on cruise ships off of the ships, onto planes, and headed north back home. That's not my core function, but our core job as an embassy overseas is to make sure that we're serving American citizens. And it's really gratifying when you have something that's tangible like that, where you know because of the phone call that you're making, whether that's to a governor or to a port authority, that the end result is going to be an American having a better outcome than if you hadn't intervened. And so that's been a really exciting opportunity. And then there's just kind of the fun parts of the job where you start looking through your phone and you say, I have 4 presidents on WhatsApp, which is a really fun thing to be able to kind of think and say and talk to your friends about back home. At the end of this career, a lot of people sit down and write a book, but I'm just going to be sitting down with all the memories that I've had of experience where you just pinch yourself and say, I can't believe that I'm really here. For me, one of the most attractive parts of the job is that you have the same career throughout, but every 2 or 3 years, you get an entirely new job. So for somebody who is excited by new opportunities like I am, it's really great. I've done jobs from promoting rule of law and counter-narcotics activities in Afghanistan to promoting human rights in Mexico. These are very different activities, but they're all tied to the same strategic objectives for the United States. The opportunity to serve in a variety of roles, and I've been a little bit boring in my career. I've talked to some of my colleagues who have done everything from a press job to doing visas to serving on promotion boards and actually being the people who do the interviews for people that want to come into the Foreign Service. There's a ton of jobs within the career. So you have that great balance of continuity of service, continuity of career, with having a bunch of different options at maybe 200 posts throughout the world. So I'm bidding right now, I'm looking at different opportunities, and you get that list, and there are 4,800 jobs on the list right now. And that's 4,800 different ways in which you can serve the country. For promotion, I think it really depends. It depends on what you're looking for in life. I think there's some people who just are trying to get promoted, but I think there are great opportunities at every level to serve in really fulfilling ways. And some of the best jobs you'll ever do are kind of at the entry and mid-level, where you've got that great mix of having a lot of individual responsibility, but having a lot of colleagues that are working on the same activity that you are. And while you're working together, there's a real sense of camaraderie, of teamwork, and the ability to learn from each other. I think one of the things it's not unique to the Foreign Service, but it's really true in the Foreign Service, is the importance of our long apprenticeship. You'll go 10, 15 years, and I've been in now for 16 years, I'm still learning new things every day. And you're not really until you're 20 or 25 years in that you're starting to feel really comfortable about being a leader. So you wake up one day after having been going through this very long process of learning on the job, and you look around, and all of a sudden, you're one of the more senior diplomats in the service. And that's one of the really neat and gratifying things, that the opportunities come throughout. I've talked mostly about the Foreign Service, but that's also true in the Civil Service. The opportunities are a little bit different because your rank and your position are a little bit steadier, but you see people progress through that job description as a civil servant in much the same way that you see people progress through the Foreign Service. A lot of different job opportunities. It's just the process by which you go to apply for new jobs is very different, and there's not that regular changeover. As a civil servant, you spend most of your time in Washington. As a Foreign Service officer, you spend up to 3/4. I have friends who've been in for 15, 20 years who have only served in the field, and that's a long time to be away from home. So I've fortunately been able to go back and forth. I'm probably going back to Washington next time. And so you get to balance your professional needs with your family and personal needs as well by kind of choosing where you're going to be. For me, I said at the beginning, I grew up not really having a strong Latin identity. And that's been something that's strengthened as I've been in the Foreign Service. And I've realized I speak better Spanish now. And I realize a lot of the things that my father imparted on us weren't weird oddities of the Andino family, but rather cultural heritage that he was unwittingly passing on to us. And so I've gained a deeper appreciation of what it means to be a professional Latino who serves his country. I think one of the opportunities that has really presented itself to me is that it gives you this perspective. It gives you it's an open door because especially working in Latin America, but also throughout the world, where somebody has an idea of what an American looks like, what an American talks like, what an American's experience is. And one of our strengths, whatever your heritage is, whatever your background is to have your personal story that comes out. And for me, being the grandson of an illiterate Honduran farmer and the son of a father who worked at a grocery store after he came to the United States at the age of 19 to learn English and who worked his way through that grocery chain and then has a son who's a diplomat is a really compelling story for foreign audiences. And so I think that's one of the opportunities that being Hispanic has given me. You can tell a different story that might surprise your counterpart. And if they're getting most of their image of the United States through Hollywood or through the newspaper, it's just a different aspect that they don't understand. And it's one of the great promises of our country that makes us really attractive to our foreign audiences. At the same time, in terms of other opportunities, the Department of State is getting better and better, and the government as a whole is getting better and better at celebrating the diversity that really gives us that strength, because that diversity is critical for us in having a process that better represents the policy outcomes that we want. And so that, as we get better, we're starting to see that there are more opportunities like this video for people as individuals who are representative of a certain cultural heritage to celebrate that heritage. And for me, that's a really exciting aspect. And that's it.